Hi there, this is Chris from MoneyHub, and this video looks at must-know web design mistakes to avoid. A bit of a mouthful, but something that's critical to understand if you are planning to get a website made or if you're planning to get a redesign or anything like that. We've put together a comprehensive list, which I'm going to go through right now. You can find the guide which I'm talking about, linked down below in our video description. If you do have any questions, please let us know. We want our website and we want our guides to be as comprehensive as possible. So anything that you do ask, we'll respond to. And of course, if it helps, we'll definitely update our resources. So without further ado, I'll get straight into it. Many people embark on a web design and don't really understand the process. So this video is really designed just to explain to you where things can go wrong and how to avoid it. So the first step is, if you do have an idea for a website, just if you're, say, a small business, anything like that, it's really important to understand exactly what you want the website to do. So do you want it there just for gathering leads or showcasing what you actually offer? For example, if you're a law firm, a medical center, plumber, builder, anything like that, then you're likely to have a page for, your staff or your team, and then your services, and then like, for example, if it's construction, a portfolio of what you've done, things like that. But at the same time, you have to know exactly what you want. So the best thing to do is really look around. What do you see from other websites that you like? And this would provide a clear scope for the designer. So basically, as I said, just look at what else is around and what you want to sort of emulate with yours, and possibly some improvements that you want or some other features. And then if you can helpfully just sort of summarize that, saying, right, well, I want to have this website kind of like mine, but these are extra things that I would like, but I don't need this if you don't need something in it that you see. And that way it's a proper structure. Now, a second to that is not considering the designer's skills and experience. This is really important. Some people go cheap, some people go too much, and then they get huge bills or small bills and are not a very good product or very good service. So what you really need to do is make sure you look at the reviews of people who you're going to hire to build, because that's going to come down to, that's going to count for a lot, especially making sure that they are experienced in what you want to do. For standard websites, not really going to be a problem. You're very safe to just go through and, pretty much put together, say, a 3, 5, 7-page website. Most web designers should be able to do that. But when it comes to e-commerce, you want to be sure that if you are going to pursue such a website, it's certainly complicated. It certainly requires a lot of back and forth and a lot of your time as well, that you have someone who's done it before, who knows exactly what they're doing, and has a track record of live e-commerce websites that you can look at, knowing that, existing customers of theirs, still keep them live. So it's clearly proven to work, rather than someone building something and it not working and then the client, getting someone else to build. So just be aware that, there's a big difference between designer skills and their experience. It's not a professionalized, qualification in the way that you'd find lawyers or accountants or anything like that. It is pretty much anyone can say they do websites, and that is good, but that also can be bad. So just be aware that making sure that you understand their limits, look at their portfolio on their websites, and just get an understanding. If you like something that they've done, then it's often helpful to emulate that. Of course, you'll be changing so most of it, but just in general, the design or, how it's laid out, that's certainly features which can be replicated for your own site. And then a big issue is not discussing the budget and the payment terms up front. So we've written about this here. It's really important that you have to be clear with what you want the website to cost, because if you have a budget of $1,000, that needs to be told up front. There's no point saying, okay, well, we're not sure, but, you put together a quote and this is what we want. You have to really put your price first. That's going to distinguish, whether or not someone will work with you. Often people won't. It it basically just depends. Likewise, if you had a budget for, say, $50,000, then most small business web developers probably wouldn't be wanting to take that on unless you needed, well, I mean, if you needed something specific, then probably not. You just need to say what your budget is to really get an understanding of what you can get. And don't be afraid to sort of cast the net wide. There's dozens of good there's dozens of good web developers all throughout. We've listed them: Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, all the main cities. We want you to understand that the choice is yours, and it's certainly not something that you should just ask one or two. Just say, if you put your brief very specifically and say, this is what we want to do, this is like websites that we like, and we've got a budget of, say, $1,500, then you're going to get much more sort of refined quotes and people willing to work with you because you showed that you're serious, rather than just pie in the sky leads, which do float around, and people are less sort of willing to work with them and give them any time because they're not really putting down a price. So be honest, be accurate, and just say exactly what your budget is. Now, not setting clear deadlines. This is really, really important because you have to provide things to the web developer, but at the same time, they also need to keep on schedule as well. So you'll need to give your logos, you need to provide color preferences, any types of font. If you have to provide content or a question list answered so they can create the content, then that all needs to be done promptly so that you can understand, so that they can understand exactly what they're dealing with and what they need to build, and then design it accordingly. Where things go wrong and where things take time is when, say, you commission a web designer, then you get distracted. There's a whole bunch of emails going out from them, and you think, oh, I'll get onto this later and later. Well, whilst you don't reply, then they can't actually take the website forward. So it definitely goes both ways. But at the same time, you want to make sure that a web developer that you choose has a clear process so that you know the steps that they're going to take to make sure that everything is kept on track. And that, say, it could be a 15, 20 business days type of turnaround. There's a review edit stage, things like that. The worst thing is just giving them, all your information, some money, and not really knowing what comes next. So ask for the process. If they're experienced, they'll be doing a lot of websites, so it's good that, they will have done a lot of websites, so it's good for them to have a process, so they'll be able to tell you, but make sure you understand exactly what they're going to sort of deliver in the coming weeks. And then not considering maintenance and updates. This is also a big problem and a thing that people make mistakes about, especially if they rush it to get it built, but then the afterwork is very costly. So what this means basically is that when you get a website handed over to you, so once it's gone live, then to change it, you need to be able to edit it. And some web developers will say, yes, you can use these tools. This is all very simple. But some other ones, and this isn't so common, but it has been an issue in the past, and certainly it still is a slight problem in some places, is the fact that you need to pay them to do the website editing. And that means you're pretty much at ransom to whatever their charges are. So you really need to know, right, what am I doing once this website goes live? How easy is it to do? Who can be trained for it? What are the support resources like if I get stuck? Say you want to create a new page, say you want to change contact details, add a new team member, anything like that. You need to know how to do that. Or if you don't, then there needs to be resources that can help you do that. And then lastly, if there's no other option, then you will be having to pay the web developer, and you're pretty much guided by their rates, and that can get very expensive quite quickly. So just please do ask exactly how you're going to maintain it and what the process is, and make sure that that makes sense to you and it's something that you can realistically do. There's no point having a website with stale information. Certainly not something that we want to have, and something that we try, our hardest to make sure every day that we're, that everything's kept up to date. And the same applies for a small business website or anything like that. It needs to be up to date, and it needs to be easily accessed so you can make those changes. Now, not understanding the scope of search engine optimization. So back in the day, there's been so many scams, so many spookers around who've been saying, oh, well, we can make a website, we'll put you number one in Google and all of that stuff. And then it's all very vague. It's all very not clear. And then it often sort of funnels a whole bunch of complaints. There's a few media stories on it, and then that person reinvents themselves. Now, that's the worst case scenario here, but you really do need to understand what, SEO includes. And we've got a whole different section on this as well. So if that is important to you, then do have a read through it, because it is incredibly comprehensive and certainly something that usually makes or breaks a website if people don't understand it. So these are some questions that you can ask, and you'll find a separate video on that. Now, back to a summary version of this. Most web designers won't do anything for SEO. They'll set up your pages, they'll publish your website, but if you want it to rank number one, say you're a plumber in Sydney, you need to be able to provide resources, you need to be able to provide information as to your skills, why you should be number one. And basically, Google is looking for trusted sites. They're looking for authority. So if you're going to go out there and put lots of resources around plumbing, say lots of how-to guides, lots of videos, and then spread that around social media, get people to, contribute, then sure, you'll go up the rankings. But if you are a static site of 3 to 5 pages, then it's going to be quite limited. So it really comes down to how much time you're going to put in. People do get sold SEO subscription services, things like that. They can be very expensive. And certainly our experience at MoneyHub is not that great, just from a whole bunch of collective experiences from our team. So just be aware that if you are going to go down the SEO route, you really need to be learning it yourself and not relying on anyone else to do it, because ultimately no one cares more about your business than you do. And that means that no one can do it quite like you can. Even if they say they can do it all technical, it really comes down to putting in the effort and creating. It's a labor of love to get the resources out there to make you an authority in whatever sort of business industry you're in. So I won't go too much into that. There is a separate video, as I said, that's linked down below. But just be aware that it's not something that often just because you buy a website or pay for a website to go live, it does not mean that you're going to be number one for everything that you want. And whilst that does sound obvious, some people don't get that. So just be aware that there's certainly limitations into what your web designer will provide. And next up on the mistakes to avoid, we really think it's important to consider the website's performance. And that's why you need to look at what the portfolio websites do. So any designer's list of clients that they have, plus the website designer's own website. Now, what does all this mean? Basically, Google's developed this tool, and what they've done is that you can put any URL through it, i.e. the website address, and then it will tell you how good it is in terms of the overall SEO design of it all and the overall experience that Google sees when it's indexing all of its, actually the whole internet to show to people. So the higher the scores towards 100, that's the better result. So, for example, if we do Qantas, and I'm going to run that now, I'm going to pause it. It takes a little bit of time just to get the right numbers, to get the actual results. Right, so they've come through here, and you can see for Qantas that there's 4 different categories here: performance, accessibility, best practices, and SEO. So while the SEO is very strong towards 100, you can see some issues with their performance, and this is on the desktop. Of course, on mobile, then the scores there are slightly lower. And without getting into it, because it's a completely different topic, it's just the way it's designed. So basically, Google's saying they want small images, they want everything to load fast, and they want the server to be really quick, amongst other things. And it's just making sure that if you ran your web developer's site through this tool, which I've linked to down below in the video, then you will find that if it is high, then that's great. It seems to be that they know what they're doing. As long as the website looks good, it's a very fantastic sort of outcome. And then if you find that there's lots of 20s, 25s, I've seen 4s, I've seen 2s. 2 out of 100 is not great. So just be aware that this is going to vary based on each website. So make sure that you get an understanding of what they can do. And if it is so low, then do ask them and what they think of this, because the answer should be, well, we're working on changing our structure to make sure they're always top. But if they just ignore it outright, then that's problematic, because if you're wanting to rank in Google for, your keyword, i.e. things like best plumber Brisbane, lawyers Sydney, things like this, then you need to be fully prepared to make the investment with the right web developer who'll get you these scores as a fundamental starting point. It's not going to guarantee you those places or any kind of top Google results, but it's certainly going to give you the right tools and certainly be something that Google wants to see. Now, if I look at the MoneyHub website, so just as an example, this is not to brag, this is not to show off or anything. This is, you can see that here, that's our site, and you can see that the scores are all over 90 or 90, and it's pretty much close to 100 as you can get. The server time will vary based on when the test is run, so we're not too concerned about that. And then if you look at the desktop, then it's pretty much close to 100 as you can get. So we're very pleased. But that's not saying that we're web designers or anything like that. It's just that this is what we believe in. But it's certainly something which some web developers sort of disregard totally. So it's really critical to make sure that you ask for it and make sure that your website's going to be one of the strong ones. And then 2 more points here just to conclude on the mistakes. So if you're dealing with a sole operator, there's certainly some absolutely brilliant sole operators who are like young guns or even whatever age guns, and they're out there, they're creating great websites. But there's always a risk that if something happens to them, if they close down suddenly, if they move overseas or anything like that, then what happens to your website? So this is why it's really important to ask them. It's no problem that you're a sole trader or anything like that, but what's your succession plan, or who can I go to if you're suddenly not there, if you go on holiday, anything like that. Make sure that you understand the answers, because it's going to vary based on who you ask, but you need to make it real, because the worst thing happens is that, if their domain is, so if your website domain, i.e. your .com.au address is with them and they suddenly can't be contacted, and then you need to have those renewed, then it's a problem, because it's not going to be automatically renewed, and your website might go offline, and they're not contacting you, and there's no one else to contact because it was a sole operator. So just be prepared to take the risk if it is someone that you want to work with, but at the same time, do understand what the succession or what the alternative plans are, especially for editing as well. Sometimes they might not be available, they might be too busy, they might be away. What happens if you need something edited and there's, that person's not there? So ask the questions and make sure that the answers make sense. And then finally, not doing a proper handover. This is a big mistake. So what happens is that you're finally through the process of the website, everything's gone live, you're really happy with it, and you get a whole bunch of sort of documents saying, emailed to you, that this is how you log in, this is what you need to know, and you never really look at it, you never log in, and then down the track you need to make some change urgently, and then you can't find those files, or you can't find the login or anything like that. It was months ago, blah blah blah. So be prepared, but once the website's live, to go through, spend an hour or two. If you have a workmate, put some sort of responsibility on them, or sort of run it, or share the responsibility, just to get the understanding that it's not just you alone, and there's someone else to help as well. But make sure you can log in, make sure you can do simple edits, because that's going to protect your business, because that's what you want the website to do. It has to represent you, and it's hopeless, or there's no point if no one can actually make the changes. So that's a summary there, and I'll leave it there because there is a lot to talk. But as I said, the summary is below, and I've linked it. And do let us know if you have any questions, because we want our guides to be as comprehensive as possible. So anything that you ask will generate a response from us, certainly, and very promptly. And of course, if there's something else we need to add, then certainly we'll be doing that. Thanks very much.